Microsoft admits what we already knew. If you've watched this channel for more than 5 minutes, you've probably heard me say time and time again that Xbox One sales were about 50% of PlayStation 4's, meaning for every 2 PlayStation consoles sold, one Xbox One generation was sold along with it. Now, we've taken this pretty much verbatim as fact, and Microsoft is finally admitting what we already knew. Now, because Microsoft is trying to spend about $70 billion dues to buy Activision/Blizzard, they have to go to court and defend themselves and be like, hey, we got to justify why we should be allowed to buy this massive company to bring it inside of our already massive company. And so Microsoft is going around the globe and filing different statements in different courts to try to justify and get this through. And so in Brazil, who was spotted by Game Luster, Microsoft officially said, hey, Xbox One sales were half, actually technically less than half of PlayStation 4 sales. Now, PlayStation 4 sales last we saw were around 117 million, which means at best, Xbox One sales for its generation and lifetime were 58.5 million at best. I actually would suspect that they're probably a little bit lower than that. But realistically, what Microsoft is saying here is that, hey, the information we were running on for years is in fact accurate. More importantly, this gives us a baseline, which I have said time and time again. Judge Xbox Series S and X based on its performance versus Xbox One. I fully believe that the PlayStation 5 will more than likely outsell the Xbox Series S and X platform. But the thing to watch, and what I've been harping on, is watch the gap. If it closes from a 2-to-1 gap, then it has been a generational success for Microsoft. And by all accounts, it looks like Microsoft is on that path. They already had this last fiscal year, the most amount of revenue for Xbox last year. It was around over $16 billion. That was the best year on record in terms of revenue for Xbox. Now, we don't know the profitability there for full transparency, but we know that it was the most profitable, or they had the most amount of revenue compared to any previous generation of Xbox. So we all know what happened with the Xbox One. It was the higher price. It was the Kinect being bundled. It was TV. All these major factors really just collapsed the demand, honestly, for Xbox. They had things like Halo and some Gears of War that really brought them back, but it was a lost generation from pretty much the start. And so the Xbox Series S and X are off to a much better start. And unfortunately, Microsoft has not revealed any sales figures for this specific consoles. They keep saying, judge us by our Game Pass numbers and that sort of revenue, but not our console sales, which I can justify because now that it's on TVs, on the Samsung TVs at least, and now that it's on cloud gaming on your mobiles and on your browsers, that maybe that makes more sense. But at the end of the day, we all still kind of want to know how many consoles were sold. But as of right now, we do believe it is better than a 2-to-1 ratio from everything that I have heard across the industry. So from that benchmark, things are going better, and Microsoft has proudly said that this was one of their best launches ever, or not one of their best, it was their best launch of their consoles in their history. So there we go. I just find it interesting that as Microsoft is trying to close this $70 billion deal, which will hopefully happen, we should hopefully hear things, I'm hoping this fall, about whether or not that will go through. We're getting more just little tidbits about the past. So Microsoft's justification here is like, look, last generation, PlayStation destroyed us in sales. So did Nintendo. This generation, look, we believe the PlayStation is outselling it. Microsoft is setting themselves up as, in the gaming space, as an underdog to be able to justify this acquisition. And that is why we're seeing Microsoft being a little bit more transparent about some of their information related to their sales, which they don't always do when it comes to console gaming. But then again, when you want to spend $70 billion and grab some of the top IP in the industry, you got to prove that you're actually not going to be a monopoly once you have it in your portfolio. And that is the stance that Microsoft is trying to take. So there you go. Just a little bit of Monday morning news for you. Make sure to keep it subscribed here because the only BS on this channel is me.